Hi, my name is Catherine. I own Sunny Hill Flower Farm, and I have constructed a small video just for you to start a flower farm this year. If you're aspiring to start a flower farm, these are going to be the key elements you're going to need to know about this year to start a farm. All right, we are going to cover why you should start a flower farm, tools needed to start a flower farm, soil, seed starting, season changes, planning, and selling. These are the key elements that I have come up with from over the 5 years of flower farming, not knowing what I was doing, and then starting the flower farm to a successful business. All right, first up, why to start a flower farm. You're going to come across a lot of people who will have videos about why you shouldn't start a flower farm, why it is so hard. But all of us know that nothing comes easy and there is no get rich quick scheme. Everything is extremely difficult. And so I am here to tell you why you should start a flower farm. First of all, flower farming is a lifestyle that is athletic. You're going to be outside, you're going to be in nature. There is nothing more beautiful than being in nature and being in soil. Yes, you're going to have days that are going to be sweaty, they're going to be hot, you're going to be... Second, flower farming is extremely fulfilling. When you understand why you are growing flowers and who you're growing them for, it's not just about the bugs and the problems and the hard work, but when you get to see people's faces and why flowers are so important for health for the soul, you understand that you are bringing joy to people when it comes to flowers. When you start dropping off flowers to people, you will see their faces light up, and then you know that is why you grow flowers. Next up, what are the tools you're going to need to start a flower farm this year? My number one thing would be go meet your neighbors. This is one of the best things I ever did when I started a flower farm. I did not start out with all the right equipment nor the right knowledge, but by meeting the people around me, telling my neighbors about what I was doing, it opened up the best doors possible. Just also going to local agriculture events and connecting with other local ag offices. Flower farming is one of the coolest ag endeavors. That is what they call micro farming. This means you can grow a lot on a small space, which means you can live in an urban area, and flower farming is perfect for this kind of space. I would suggest that if you don't have a big plot of ground or you're just getting started and you don't have a way to till up the ground, go ahead and start in raised beds. This is a perfect way to get started. You can maintain that soil, but also have a very small space that you can keep track of. The next thing when it comes to tools is having a great support system. When starting any new endeavor, having a support system is absolutely key, because when things get tough, you will need people around you to tell you to keep going, because anything we do that's new, it's going to have a learning curve, and we need to know that we have people behind us backing us who are going to encourage us to move forward. I would encourage anyone who is working with a new plot of ground to have a tractor, a rototiller. This could be something your neighbors help you with. But when you're breaking ground for the first time, if you're not going to be doing raised beds, but you're planning on going into the soil that you have, I would suggest you're going to need some kind of tool to really get into that soil. And here are a basic few tools you're going to need. Some things I would consider would be getting just a shovel, a rake, a hoe, a trowel. You're also going to need heat mats and grow lights and seed trays. This is going to be for when starting those seeds outdoors and indoors. All right, next up would be finding a source of compost. There are probably more ways to do this in your area than you think. Around where I grow flowers, I get a dump truck of mushroom compost from a mushroom factory. There's also a fish hatchery near me, and I can get free fish emulsion from them. This is ways you can build up the soil without investing so much money and time into getting those resources. All right, next up, of course, obviously, you are going to need soil. This is one of those things that can be missed when starting a farm, but without good soil, your farm will be very unsuccessful. When you till the ground for the first time, it will tend to be the best it can be for that first season. This is because you've taken the weeds and the growth that has been in the soil and you've turned it back into the soil, which means now the roots and the blades of grass are now decomposing in your soil. Let's talk about some things that are super important that can be missed when it comes to soil. A lot of us, if we were just starting to garden, it can be a confusing world. Like, what is this thing, this brown thing that is so important, and how can we harness the benefits from the soil that are going to make our flowers the best possible? All right, first up, never leave it uncovered. Mostly why weeds appear is because the soil is telling you, I need a covering. Soil left barren to the sun can become extremely depleted and ruin your soil. So that is why you need to keep things growing in the soil and also some kind of mulch. Yeah. Next up is having a living soil. We are looking for soil that is breaking down matter and feeding itself. Soil that contains worms and frogs in the soil, creating a habitat for things to be living within it. Airflow is also super important. We also want soil that breaks apart easily with air pockets going through it. We don't want heavy clay like soil or what I have at the farm, which is very heavy sand. It can be missed, and what I call is leave it there. Sometimes we think that tearing out all the old plants along with the roots is okay, but it's not always so. You see, that plant was taking nutrients from the soil and the sun through photosynthesis. And instead of turning that plant into the ground to decompose, you removed all of its wonderful nutrients from the soil. So when we're tearing out plants out of the ground, we're taking those roots and everything that is from the sun that's very healthy for the soil that is in the plant out. We've just depleted the soil. So one way to do this is to take that plant, turn it back into the soil, let it decompose, and get those nutrients back into the soil. All right, next up are my 3 ways to build your soil. Number 1, test your soil. This is key. Go to your local ag office and get a soil sample bag. They are very easy to use, and when you get your soil test back, you will then be able to move forward with a better understanding of what your soil needs. 2, add compost. Be careful to be picking up compost from someone who does not know how to make it. This can cause major issues. So study how to make compost so that you're educated, that when you go to buy it, you know what you're getting. Also, just be mindful of adding a variety of straw, leaves, things that will break down over time and bring more nutrients into the soil. All soil normally is empty of nitrogen, so anytime you can add that into your soil, it is going to benefit it. Okay, third and last up is our off season. This is really helpful, especially when we were talking about covering the soil. So something I love to do in the off season is plant a cover crop. Cover crops are one of the best ways to gain nutrients into your soil in the off season. Talk with your local commercial seed company and tell them what you are trying to do and they're going to help you know what kind of seed combo you're going to need and give you great suggestions. A cover crop is normally a mix of seeds that are high in nitrogen and that you will broadcast and spread all the seeds over the soil that is bare in the winter season. What do you do with your cover crop after you've planted it? There are a couple different ways, but 2 I would suggest is burning it out. You can do this by laying a tarp over that cover crop and letting the sun and that heat burn out the cover crop and then planting directly into it. The next would just be to till that cover crop into the soil. This is going to let the root systems in those plants decompose over time into your soil and build up the nutrients. But I highly recommend speaking with a local supplier who knows the area and the soil, because often the wrong things can be planted if the seed representative that you're speaking to doesn't know your zone well or the area of what the soil is like and where you're growing. Now that you've built your soil to a very healthy level, seed starting is the next thing. I would recommend for anyone who is just starting out to go take Lisa Mason Ziegler's seed starting workshop. This is very basic but extremely helpful. All right, I'm going to share with you a few basic principles that once you understand these, you'll be able to start any seed. Light and darkness. When starting out, we think that all seeds need to be covered, and this is not true. Seeds like sunflowers need darkness, which means we're going to put dirt over the seed. Seeds like snapdragons, we sprinkle on top of the soil so they can get the light so that they can germinate. So what you're going to need to do is research seed by seed. Do they need light or darkness for germination? That would be cold or warm season flowers. So this helps you know, when do I need to start my seeds? How do I need to start them? So I grow in zone 9A, which means I never get a winter. With cool flowers such as snapdragons, foxglove, delphinium, I need to perform what is called cold stratification. We'll also link a video below on how to perform cold stratification. Super easy, but it is going to help you jumpstart your seeds, especially if you live in a warm area. Warm season flowers only need to be started 4 weeks before planting out after that last frost happens. Another key principle is direct sow or transplant. Some seeds do better sowing directly into the soil, such as Cosmos. So if you're going to direct sow, you will be needing to hoe a trench and then sprinkle the seeds into the trench. You would then, if it needs darkness for germination, you would cover it with dirt. If not, you would just fill that trench with water. Another key element when direct sowing is you are going to need to, like I said, sprinkle those seeds. Sometimes what we do is read the back of that seed packet and we think all that we need to do is put it every 6 inches. Don't listen to this. When you are direct sowing flowers, these flowers are going to need companionship. Seeds that are directly sown need other seeds alongside them to germinate well. So go ahead, put them tightly together in that trench, and then when they sprout up and they're larger, go ahead and remove out extras to give that one plant you want to keep room to grow. One key element that I have found is when I direct sow seeds, I will place over that trench hay. Now, I'm not sure if it's the humidity or the warmth, but it promotes germination way better than if you just left the soil bare. A few flowers that I direct sow. These are zinnias, cosmos, marigolds, and sunflowers. All right, so if we're going to be transplanting flowers, this is where you would start seeds inside in trays or soil blocks. You would need, all right, next up would be transplanting. You can do this by starting seeds in trays and in soil blocks indoors. I always find a place that's a little bit out of the way. And then also you're going to need to create a humidity dome. The best way to do this is to take your seed tray and then wrap it in saran wrap. Once those seeds have germinated, I go ahead and take the saran wrap off. All right, after my transplants have started and they're about an inch off of the soil, I go ahead and take that tray and I put it outside. If it's ever too hot or too cold, I will bring them in. But this helps them adapt to the outdoor elements so that when you go to transplant them into the garden, they are ready and adapted to the outdoor element. Next up, another key element is to understand where you are growing. With the internet and the way things are these days, we can be educated by someone who does not know our climate, and we can often fail in our endeavors by using rules that do not apply to where we are growing. We'll also link below a course that I have made to understand what zone you're growing in so you can harness all the techniques that will benefit you in your growing. I'm in zone 9A and most rules do not apply to my farm. It is extremely dry and hot, and when flowers that most times don't need a lot of water, actually in my zone, I need to be watering. Another thing if you're going to be starting a flower farm is planning. As a flower farmer, you will need to get used to planning a season or two ahead. If a flower needs to have cold stratification, for example, you will need to order it, put it in that cold period, plant it, and then transplant it. And this is a lot of steps and weeks. So you will need to calculate all that is going to be put into this plant and when it needs to be ordered, when that cold stratification needs to happen, and when you end up to plant it outside. Often spring is done with planning for fall and summer with planning for winter. After a few years, you will learn this and it will get so much easier. But make sure you're thinking ahead because we can often miss this step. All right, last up. So a lot of flower farmers can miss this very important step. So we are growing flowers, we're understanding our soil, we're trying to figure out all of this. There are so many steps to do. But the last one is selling. So I'm just going to give you a quick list of ways that you can sell flowers. Once you've started your farm, once you have things growing, we need to know how to make a profit off of this. So I'm just going to rattle off a list and hopefully it helps you. You can let photographers rent your flower field. This is super helpful if you don't have a lot of time to cut and deliver flowers. You can also open your farm for field trips. This is something you would have to host and also teach and interact with people. There's another thing, you could teach floral classes using your farm flowers. You could supply restaurants with edible flowers. You could have customers that you ship bouquets to. You could be a wholesaler to florists. You could do floral arranging for weddings. You could make a farm event center. So you could take your flower farm and make it an event center that people can rent for parties, for small gatherings, and for weddings. You could also do a flower U-pick. Supply grocery stores with weekly bouquets. You can also launch, and I see a lot of flower farmers do this, which is a bouquet subscription. So people pay in advance for a 4 or 6 week subscription. They can either pick that bouquet up for all those weeks at the farm, or you could deliver them to a local storefront and people can come pick their flowers up there. Guys, hopefully this was helpful for you to start your flower farm this year. If you have any questions, go ahead and leave them in the comments. also need grow lights and heat mats for this.